Good morning. Thank you for joining us. We will get started very shortly. Thanks for joining. If you're able to, why don't you bring up the chat box in Zoom and just type a short note telling us where you're joining us from this morning. There, I see more people connecting in. That's excellent. Good. We're just going to give it a couple of minutes before we get going here. Let people get connected. I recognize many of the names. Okay. Drew is from Niagara Falls. Excellent. Yeah, just drop a note in the chat box telling us where you're joining us from this morning. North Carolina. Excellent.
Going to be at a music festival up near you this summer in Sherman, New York. It's a bluegrass, zydeco, and festival and reggae. Pretty near you. What else do we have? Birmingham, Alabama.
Yeah.
James, do you know Hinkle Roofing by any chance? Biggest roofer in Birmingham. Weird thing that I would know that, but good people. Lewiston, New York. All right. Look. Michael, I know you're a regular. I think it's funny that you're mentioning that. So, just in fair disclosure, Michael, let me share why the glasses and the hat. And I should say you should see the other guy, whatever, but it was a weird incident where I got thrown from a golf cart and got pretty bruised up. So hence the hat and the glasses. So
Good. We'll just give it another 30 seconds here for people to get connected.
yeah.
I hope that on your screens you can see a chart that says world-class innovation, develop value that creates success. Good. Well,
Barry,
in the
I
interest of
think I'm
time,
nominating Barry. I think I'm nominating Michael Conlon to my president of my fan club because I don't think he's missed a seminar that I've done. So thank you for that.
That's right. So I think we'll make a start. Interest of time here. My name is Barry Black with the Mid-Florida chapter of SCORE. I'm just going to be the host for today's session. Our presenter is Dave Harrison, who I think many of you would know from previous webinars as well. Just a quick introduction. Remember that your audio and video are turned off for today's session, but we generally use the chat window in Zoom if you have any comments or questions. And of course, we've been starting by getting people to tell us where they're joining us from today. We'll have this recording of this webinar available within just a few days. I should get it up on our website by tomorrow, but sometimes it takes a few more days before an email with a link to it is sent to the attendees. If you have any problem getting the link, just email midflorida@score.org and we'll make sure you get it. Sorry, I should have said midflorida@scorevolunteer.org. All right. After this session, you will get an email from SCORE asking for any feedback. We greatly appreciate it if you just take a moment to give us that feedback. Now, as you probably realize, SCORE is a national, nonprofit, volunteer-based organization. We provide support to people who are looking to start or grow a small business. And we do that primarily through free, confidential business mentoring, one-on-one kind of business mentoring. But we also do a very wide variety of online business workshops like the one you're attending today. As well, we have a variety of tools and templates available through our website. We do have over 10,000 volunteers across the country, so no matter where you are, you can find local help. And SCORE is a resource partner of the U.S. Small Business Administration. Any of the SCORE websites, whether it's any of the chapters or the national SCORE website, They all have the same look and feel, kind of looks like this. And I just wanted to point out that little plus sign in the white circle. If you click on that, it'll ask for your zip code, and then it'll give you a selection of the SCORE chapters that are very close to that zip code. In
Barry, you might want
case
to
you
check to
want
see
to
what
check
slide
out their events or, sorry?
you might want to check to make sure they're seeing your slides, because on my screen, I'm only seeing my intro slide, but it might be just my screen.
Okay, yeah, I'm hoping people are seeing the use resources,
Good.
use SCORE resources chart. Yeah.
Yep, they're saying in the
Okay.
chat room they are, so I
Okay,
apologize.
good. Okay. So again, that little plus sign, you put your zip code in, it'll tell you which SCORE chapters are close to where you live. It's always helpful to get local help because the mentors in the nearby chapters will better understand the business circumstances close to where you are. The local mentors button, that's where you would request free confidential mentoring. It can be face-to-face or it can be remote, it can be virtual, it can be phone, it can be email, whatever. And then of course the local workshops button will provide you with a long list of upcoming in-person or online workshops. Most of them are online nowadays. And the local resources button is where you would find the templates and tools that I mentioned previously. I just want to remind you that if you enjoyed today's workshop, please refer your business colleagues to SCORE in case we can be of some help to them as well. Now, as you probably realize, Dave Harrison is our presenter today. Dave does many webinars for us on very valuable topics. I hope you will attend future Dave Harrison presentations as well. Dave is a SCORE mentor in the Mid-Florida chapter as well. He also teaches MBA students in all variety of business subjects. He's had a career as a senior executive with global responsibilities at companies like Johnson & Johnson, Armstrong, and Standard Industries. And he started several entrepreneur ventures of his own, and he continues to be very active in various philanthropies. With that, I'm going to turn things over to Dave.
Barry, I thank you. And if you can just confirm that everyone can see my front screen.
I can see it.
Awesome. 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 All right. Let's start with agreement. Let's see if I want to make sure this is a successful day for you. Right. So for you, if you gain some tools that make it easier to pursue your dreams, is that something be successful for you? If you gain some insight into concepts that encourage effective creativity, not only yourself, but others you work with, if you get some tools that enable you to, frankly, unleash that capability, would that be a success for you? That sound good, Cheryl? Thanks. Good. And by the way, as Barry already said, because I usually get this question, even when Barry covers it, yes, this will be recorded, and yes, it'll be available. So thank you, everybody. All right. Let's agree, by the way, success for me, if we achieve at the end, if you didn't like it, don't tell anybody. If you liked it, well, sort of thumbs up. If you loved it, tell everyone you know and tell other people to come to other SCORE events, not only of mine, but the other people who volunteer their time or whatever to do these presentations. All right, so what's the foundation of all this? Well, the foundation is really help clients receive better value. All right, so what does that mean? It means, well, generating superior client options. And I use the word options on purpose. If you don't share options with your clients, you're psychologically convincing them, not educating them, not sharing value. When you share options, even when you're pretty sure which one they're going to choose, they get to make the decision. It switches you from the convincing mode to the helping mode, which is more effective. Two, it's about having clients improve their experiences. Look at the entire experience that you have with your client, and every one of them is an opportunity to differentiate yourself. So as an example, one of the things I do with my clients is we start off not with what we're going to do. we start off with the client journey, and we plot the entire journey from how they first decided they might have needed the item we're working with, to the where they saw an ad or however they got who they're going to call, to the incoming call, to any emails they get, to any appointment setting they get, to every single thing they hear and see. We put it down as part of the journey. And then we ask ourselves, how can we improve that experience? How can we out-educate their other options, our competitors? How can we develop more trust, educate better, and show them what's in it for them? At every one of those stages, how can we be better? So it's that client journey. It's the experiences. Two is we apply creative problem solving, and solving means looking holistically at what's going on, because solving an issue often affects another issue. So it's looking at things holistically. I'm going to talk about how to do that. Innovation, frankly, is about a simple thing. It's doing things differently than you were doing before, or that other people get to experience. And it's valuable if other people who depend on you appreciate it. So I define clients as both internal and external. In a bigger company, a client might be someone who's employed by the same company. It's anybody that depends on you for something I view as a client, and treat them as a client, and treat them as a customer. And if they appreciate the difference, it has value. And then we can implement it successfully. So a client is anybody that does or might depend on you, and that you help them achieve what they want, internally and externally. All right. So what's the strategy delivering value? Well, the strategy is, here's a reality. Clients expect good products, good service, good price. And most companies I see, they just focus on sharing with the client or convincing the client, which is more likely the case and not the best approach. But they talk about, here's my products are really good, here's my services are really good, and here's my price is really good, and why aren't they buying? They're not buying at that point because that's what they expect. And if all they see is what they expect, they're going to look at the options that deliver what they expect and buy based on price. So therefore, we need to go beyond what's expected in their comparison to the other options they have. And that's where value's added. You've got to first demonstrate that you're acceptable, which is what they expect. And then once you're acceptable, because they rule you out before they rule you in, once you're acceptable, now you've got to show them why you're beyond acceptable. What's beyond what they expect that they appreciate and has value to them. And then to be world-class, you got to communicate that and deliver it. So what's the math? All right. The math is pretty simple. They have options. They're making a best guess of their perception and opinion about those options. So value is greater when what they get times how important it is to them minus what they gave up. So to deliver superior value, clients first rule you out before they rule you in. Then they take whatever criteria they have, and often that's an issue. They don't have criteria. So part of certain categories I've been involved in, you've got to share criteria they might use, especially if it's something they don't normally buy. But they use whatever criteria to prioritize the experiences, and most decisions are to avoid an experience they don't want, and secondarily, to gain an experience they do want. And again, that's very important. People in general put the priority on avoiding first, and then gaining second. And if you don't believe me, watch almost any Procter & Gamble ad, Johnson & Johnson ad, IBM ad, Microsoft ad, whatever. They almost all go to avoid this, and then you also gain this. The choice is based on a client's opinions, which is also very important. People buy based on perceptions and opinions and use facts to support it. And they use those opinions for the comparative value of their acceptable options. So therefore, superior value is when the client understands and values important differences. That's the key. And the key to innovation is looking at every step in the client's journey and ask yourself, is there an opportunity to improve trust, increase insight, drive action through being first acceptable and then differentiating why you're the best option? And do that as simply as you can. Before I keep going, is this making sense? Is this helpful? Am I going too fast, too slow, or is this the right pace? Just give me some quick feedback before I continue. Okay. Sounds like it's good so far. Awesome. Awesome. All right. So my suggestion to you is sort of spiritual, sort of, whether religious or not, sort of like you wake up every day and ask yourself throughout the day, you are a human radar, and you're just looking out and saying, is there anybody I can help today? That's a purpose-driven life every day. So as an example, my kids growing up from age 5 on, at the dinner table, they knew they had to answer a question first thing at the dinner table. And the question their entire child life was, who did you see that looked like they might have a bad day? And what did you do about it? And they better have a story every time I ask the question. Why? Because there's a lot of things about your children you can't affect after a certain age. You can't. But you can train certain muscles. You can train certain reactions. You can train certain ways of possibly thinking of something. And the one thing I wanted for my boys, whatever they chose in life, is they had a purpose-driven life. And to have a purpose-driven life, it's looking around you constantly and saying, how can I help somebody else? And Zig Ziglar, the most famous sales trainer ever, basically, he put it simply, you're going to get all you want in life if you help enough people get what they want. My belief is if you focus on helping your customer's customer, you're going to get superior results. Now, what do I mean by that? I was often on the manufacturer side. Manufacturers often sell through distribution. Distribution often sells to the retailer or the contractor, whatever it is. Contractor sells to the homeowner. Whatever that value chain is, what I saw most of my competitors do, if they were a manufacturer, they're focused on the distributor. If they were a distributor, they focused on the contractor or the retailer. If they were a retail, okay. What I used to do as a manufacturer is say, when I try to sell to the distributor, they think I'm focused on what's in it for me. So I focused on their customer. And now my relationship with the distributor changed because they saw I'm trying to help them. We're working towards the same thing, which is why I believe look at your customer's customer, help solve their issues, and therefore your customer is going to see you as helping them. All right. So what's the goal? Well, it's more profits through superior value. I have a simple equation that I used my entire career. I learned this at Johnson & Johnson at age 25. If you look at a spectrum, the intensity of desire to avoid something and to gain something, and the gap between that, they want it, and the intensity of they believe the option I'm offering is the most unique, and can do what they want. So, give you an example, right? Listerine, mouthwash, right? Avoid gain. So I remember it was initially halitosis. I had no idea what halitosis was, but I knew I didn't want it. Listerine, we don't taste very good, unique, but we kill halitosis. And then when that wore out, it was gingivitis. I had no idea what gingivitis was. I knew I didn't want it. We taste terrible. We kill gingivitis. You see the point? And by the way, if you owned a mouthwash, you'd want to own Listerine. They sell the most of it at the highest price. What's that gap? And the wider the gap, the more money you make. So ask yourself 4 key questions in innovation. 1, what can I do that they need and find it to be valuable to them? 2, compare. When they compare, will they choose it? When they compare to the other options, are they likely to choose it? 3, can we do it? And last, can we do it profitably? What do most people do? They first start off with C, can we do it? The second is, can we do it profitably? And then they rationalize that someone has a need and they're going to go for it. Bad place to start, because by definition, when you start looking internally first, you end up rationalizing that everyone's going to want it. Start customer centric, internal and external. Do they need it and they value it? Will they choose it compared to their other options? And then, can we do it? Can we be profitable? So let's think about choice. Choice equals the value of that experience, avoid or gain. So I'm going to give an example in personal life. All right. Scenario 1. I remembered my wife's anniversary. 2, I didn't do anything unexpected. 3, so what should you tell family and friends? Basically nothing. I remembered the anniversary, and that's acceptable. Scenario 2, forgot the anniversary. And by the way, I didn't do anything special. And therefore, what should she tell her friends? Boy, was Dave a rotten guy. Can you believe he forgot my anniversary? The guy does nothing. He never thinks he must not. Because it's unacceptable. Scenario 3. This is a real interesting one. Forget I'm a little late on the anniversary, but I bring home flowers a couple of times just because I love her. What is she talking about? She's still talking about the anniversary that I forgot. So where's the big value? Yeah, I not only remember the anniversary, but every once in a while on a Tuesday, on a Saturday morning, I brought home flowers just because. And now she tells everybody, think about that for your business. What do they expect? But the key is going to be what they didn't expect. And that's how you create a raving customer. If it's internal, an incredible employee. If it's external, an extremely loyal and appreciative client who's going to tell everybody and stay loyal. So the search is go find that value. And be careful of your personal bias, that because we often think of things logically of what people should do, and should is one of the most dangerous words in business because it's based on your bias. So again, what's the math? Value is what are they going to get? What are they going to avoid or gain? And how much priority they give that minus what they're going to give up. So what's the criteria? Choice equals how intense they want that experience and avoid it. And then plus 2.1 times the gain. Now, what's that 2.1 in there for? Because what research shows, but most people don't want to believe, is we mathematically need 2.1 times how we value gain to equal avoid. Or in other words, we're wired to put more priority to avoid a bad experience, and it outweighs an equal good experience by a lot. A good experience needs a factor of 2 of the good experiences to equal 1 of an avoidance. Which is why most world-class companies, if you watch, we're going to help you avoid this. And by the way, we're going to help you gain this. Now, what does it mean again? Acceptable, it meets, it is trusted that you can deliver the experience they want to avoid or gain. But beyond the expected is insert the words, it even. And it even triggers the mind psychologically. The next thing is important, and it's something that's different I wouldn't expect. And a simple way of finding the best innovation is describe what you do and then add the words, it even. And if you have nothing to put there, find something. That's where the value is. Because that says, what's in it for me? So what's the process? Well, how do people generally get from wherever to action? Step one is, are you acceptable? Do you deliver what they expect, they need it or they want it? And people look for a reason to rule you out, because if they rule you out, it makes their choices simpler. An example would be if you ever got resumes and you got 25 of them, you don't read every resume. You quickly figure a way how you're going to sort them so you get down to a focus on 5. People do that in most any purchase decision they do. It's like when you buy a car, you don't get every car. You first find a way to narrow down the few that you're going to look at, and then you narrow down the dealers you're going to look at. We are wired to figure out how to save time, be more efficient and effective by reducing the number of choices, by coming up with criteria of what we consider acceptable. The second stage is, did something grab their interest to say, I didn't expect that. That's a surprise to me, and that fits me. The third stage is then they understand those differences. What's unique and how it's going to reduce experiences and risks they don't want and help them gain experiences and gain they do want, and that they trust it. And then the fourth stage is, what's driving action? Why should they buy now? And what's the promise to buy now? So think of what you do from an innovation standpoint of how you and when and where you communicate. You're not only acceptable, but what's going to grab their interest, how you're going to demonstrate you're different than their expectation, and why should they act now? And think of everything you do through those 4 steps. So I'm going to give you an example. Right? This is how I dig for dough. This is my simple model I used all the time. Step 1, what's their situation and what do they accept? Step 2, what don't they expect that they might find interesting and it's different? I can put behind the word even. 3 is, well, who's this for specifically that's going to gain their interest because it really fits them? And 4 is, why should they act now? And then I put it through my profit model. How important is it to them? How unique is it versus their other options? And that's how I used to screen for new ideas and new products at Johnson & Johnson's, how we created. When I helped invent Reach Toothbrush or Axe Fluoride Rinse or tartar control toothpaste or flavor dental floss, and I did a bunch of other products there too, but those are ones that you know about. Most of the other ones I did were hospital products. It was always the same model, and I used the same model in every industry I was in. So here's an example of actually how we did reach toothbrush. What do they expect? At the core, prevent cavities and healthy gums. What wouldn't they expect? Most cavities are in the back teeth. Who's this for? The entire family. And why should they act? Because it's on sale now, right? That's how we built the model. And if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it enough, which is another key thing. The genius is not sharing how complex something is. The genius is seeing all the data and simplifying it to the most important. So going back to the toothbrushes, we then put that into a paragraph. This is what's called a concept statement in core project management, product marketing. First, accept and respectful. Is it important to you that your family brush their teeth every day to help remove debris that causes gum disease and cavities? Notice, avoid an experience you don't want. Hey, what's unexpected? Surprisingly, most cavities are in the hard to reach back teeth. Okay, now what's unique solution that's different? Well, Reach has bi-level bristles to remove damaging debris, to prevent gum disease, and it's even angled like a dental instrument to prevent cavities where they most common on those hard to reach back teeth. And as a result, you'll enjoy 51% cleaner teeth. And Reach is certified by the American Dental Association. So now the action why. Reach toothbrush is on sale now. You'll protect your family from gum disease and help prevent cavities with Reach. I wrote that at age 25. That's how we develop new products. That's how. Now, I've done thousands of these to roost down to the 1% of the 100, every 100 I wrote. Might have made it even the test market. That's the process. That's the test. Tell it as a story. Does it hit what they expect? Do they have a need? Is there a reason that differentiates versus their other options? Can you explain why? And why should they act? There's no greater thing you can do with your life than to follow your passions. Innovation equals change, doing things differently. However, change to everybody around you equals risk, which is why it's hard to get things done in organizations. So what's a requirement to be successful? You got to be passionate. You got to be resilient, come back quickly from any kind of failure. You got to be disciplined and purpose driven. How can you help the world be a little better off in whatever you're doing because you were there that day? Change scares people. So understand that's what's going on and a barrier to innovation. But small differences matter. Here's an example. If you're an outfielder, professional baseball, decent outfielder, if you're hitting 280, you're making millions. If you're hitting 230 as an outfielder, you're going back to the minors or you're out of baseball. Here's the reality. If you study baseball, that's one extra hit a week. One hit at 20 at-bats is the difference between making millions and you're back to the minors. Small difference, create great success. So what does that mean? Don't wait for the perfect pitch, which is what most people do. Why? Because they think it's avoiding risk. But you can't avoid risk. If you wait for the perfect pitch, you're likely not going to swing when it comes. In life, in the United States, for the most part, people only remember the runs you batted in. So what's it there for? As I share with my students all the time, swing the darn bat. Because you can't strike out. I had an uncle who went bankrupt 5 times, 5 bankruptcies. And then in 1962, living in Richmond, Virginia, he got an exclusive contract for the entire state of Virginia from this company called Carrier Air Conditioning. And what do people remember about my uncle? What an incredibly successful businessman. Swing the bat. So, what's the secret of good to great? Passion. Whatever you do, be excited and have fun. Resilience. Accept failure and put it behind you quickly. Like Larry Bird from the Celtics, why he was such a great basketball player, one of the most competitive people he ever met. And if he had failure, he put it behind him fast. Discipline. Well, discipline is doing what you don't want to do and doing it anyway. I remember at a young age, my uncle brought me to watch the Celtics. Game ends. I start walking out. He goes, "No, sit down." Whoa, if there wasn't Uncle Eli, I'm out of here. It's 25 minutes later. The place is dark. They're cleaning up. Why are we sitting here? And all of a sudden, this college kid comes out wheeling a set of basketballs, and behind him is Larry Bird. He takes 20 shots from every point in the key. He goes back in. My uncle goes, "We can go now." On the way to the train, the subway, he goes, "What did I want you to see?" Here's a man I think is the most incredible basketball player, athlete at that time in my life. What's he doing? Discipline. Doing what you don't want to do and do it anyway is the difference between good and great. And have purpose. Is what you're doing important? Implication, swing the damn bat. Have passion, be resilient, apply discipline, and seek purpose, and you will have a successful life in anything you do if you define success as the impact you had on others, not on what you acquired. So drive your creativity. Be an optimist, create value. And allow the pessimism to create fear because people avoid more than gain. So for who? Help anybody you can. It's an attitude. What? How can you be faster, more disruptive, outward focused? How? Use scientific principles to get to a best guess. Because everything's really a best guess. The key is being the best educated best guess. And why? When you do that, you get superior results and less risk. There's opportunities everywhere in an organization to create, to be innovative. But innovation is about learning, right? Learn the essence, validated learning. Be in the soil of where's there uncertainty. Learn what? The client viewpoint. They're bad at telling you what they want, but it's essential to watch and observe to find the actions and the non-actions. An example, no one asked for a copying machine. We have carbon paper, for those who remember what that is. Watch the behavior. People are bad at telling you what they want. They didn't describe they wanted a Xerox machine. They didn't describe they wanted icons and a mouse. But Apple observed actually they got that technology from Xerox. Xerox didn't think it was worth anything and gave it away free to Apple. To the client viewpoint, how can you create value? Experiences, how can you help them avoid a bad day and have a good one? The common mistake is to think you know what customers want rather than learning and validating it. Give you an example. You ask customers, do you floss your teeth? 84% say yes. I was in charge of dental floss globally. 4% in the United States actually floss their teeth. The common mistake is, I think I know what they want. They want healthy gums, whatever they're going to floss. No, that didn't affect behavior. It's one of the reasons we came up with Act Fluoride Rinse, which at least still helps do a lot of what dental floss was designed to do, and tartar control toothpaste. Be quick to pivot. If learning demonstrates you're off track, change quickly. Beware of what's called vanity metrics, making up data or finding the best of data to rationalize what you're doing makes sense. maybe the most important, change the question from can we do it to should we do it? And will help build a better, stronger business because it's what they expect and beyond and different than other options. And focus on your customer's customer. When you focus on their problem, it shifts everybody to an alignment versus selling directly. They're a skeptic. In fact, I'll use it even an example of direct to the consumer. It's one times I recognized this. I walked in with my two boys. My two boys were really good athletes, right? One ended up captain of West Point lacrosse. One ended up captain of Indiana lacrosse. They were good athletes, and did multiple sports. So I went to buy a new car. And at the time, I had a Jeep Cherokee. But I walked in with my two boys. And we walk in, and the salesperson starts talking to my two boys instead of me. I'm buying the darn car. And he goes to my two boys, what do you and your family do on the weekends? And my sons chip in. Well, in the fall, one of us plays soccer, one plays football. In the winter, we ski, and we're also on the wrestling team to get ready for our favorite sport, which is lacrosse in the spring. And they're describing this. And I'm getting pissed because I'm buying the darn car. He's focusing on his customer, which is my kids. And he turns to me and says, I just heard what you like to do, whatever. And that Jeep Cherokee, it's a good car, i.e., you're not an idiot. It's a good car. But let me share why this other option, this Ford Expedition, might be a better choice. Think of how easy it would be to get the lacrosse gear in and out, and the skis in it. Notice what he did? He's focused on the customer's customer. He's focused on the experience, not the data about the car. Now, Mr. Goodwrench in the back, who knows more about cars than everybody and is pissed that the salesperson's making twice what he makes because the salesperson knows half as much about cars. But picture if Mr. Goodwrench was a salesperson. Mr. Harrison, I noticed you pulled in a Jeep Cherokee. Do you know that the Ford Expedition has 32% more space in the back? And see the difference? Don't talk about the facts about your product. Talk about the experience. Now and later, you can help avoid and gain. So be disciplined. Think through at the different decision points in innovation. Do something, and then do a quick test. And there's always 3 options after a quick test. Keep going, pivot to something else, or stop. Make sure you do that regularly. Let me give you some examples of pivots that you know about, but you didn't know about. Pivot 1 was a company who had an incredible itch and irritation product, but there were a ton of them out there. So they said, even though we do all these different things, but we don't have a lot of money for these big companies, if we take out a little ad that says hemorrhoids, no one else is going to see it, but everybody who's got hemorrhoids is going to see it. They called it Preparation H. What's that called? A zoom in on a specific market, even though you can serve all these others, but you can't get there effectively and efficiently. Give you a second one. You know, at the fairs and stuff, and you see those glow sticks and all that? Well, this was one of my failures in life, but I give myself a little credit. I was 24 years old. I'm thinking about fishing in the state of Maine and noticing that the big fishing fleets fly planes at night, see where the fish are, and then try to describe, this is pre-GPS, for the boats to get there. And we invented these glow sticks that you crack them open and you throw them out the plane where the fish are. We missed that there was all that other opportunity. We just called a zoom out, and I screwed up. I missed it. I thought it was for fishing. 3, another example, different segment. Old Spice is the best-selling in North America men's health and beauty products. It started out as a woman's perfume in Clifton, New Jersey. Comprehensive. Some of us remember an oil change was $10. You went in, they changed the oil. Jiffy Lube says, oh no, we check out 40 different things that we do. And now we charge 75. And then where? Example, there are companies who only operate in outlet malls. In fact, Lenox Fine China, when I ran that company, 60% of our sales was in outlet malls. This is a complex version if you want it. It's a chart. This is one that Johnson Johnson has a similar one. IBM has a similar one. Microsoft has a similar one. It's a pretty simple concept for innovation. It's called stage gate. You first screen the idea, then you screen, does the concept make sense? Then does the business view make sense? Then it's just a way of thinking through, and it's got to pass through each stage, or you either continue, pivot, or stop. So tips to consider, creative process. 1, share your innovation as a story. Because when you share as a story, it's now holistic. It shows how it affects everything else. And you'll quickly see in the story, sort of like a movie, did it make sense or not? Most people describe a certain focused area and think it makes sense. No, share what you're doing as a story. You'll see the holes in it. 2, create criteria first. If you don't create criteria of what is success first, you can rationalize almost anything as it's successful. Change the words out from here's a problem to here's a situation. Why? Problem assumes a bias of a cause. Situation opens you up to more causes, more options, therefore better ideas. Diagram it. People think best, see best with what they can visualize. And I suggest you diagram it not starting with you, start with your customer's customer and work back. The math, the concept, the motivations, work your way back and see if it makes sense. Use circular thinking. What if I change this part? What if I change this part in the story? How do I rearrange all these parts? Keep going back and asking, but what if, which, by the way, is Hewlett-Packard's model, which is why it's been such an innovative company, because built into their culture is the statement of what if? Always have a plan A and a plan B. Hope for the best, but plan for the worst. Postpone evaluation until you've exhausted all the ideas, then screen them down. Be able to describe what success looks like for others and then for you, and what it doesn't look like. Always compare to what people's other options are, not the option you're providing. And be resilient and be patient. It's not a straightforward process. Some core beliefs I have about innovation. It involves both optimists to create the value, but pessimists to understand what's motivational. Everything is a best guess. The key is be the best educated guess. Be a child without fear. Imagine lots of potential differences in what's unexpected. Timing, swing the bat. If it's a pretty good pitch, don't wait for the perfect pitch because they're unicorns. Analysis, oftentimes the back of the envelope numbers are all you need. An example, someone going to college, what college did they choose? You look at how they made the decisions, it's usually more back of the envelope. And by the way, that was good enough. It wouldn't have changed the decision if it was much more complex. Create a quantity of ideas to uncover lots of valuable differences. And have the determination. There's always a way to differentiate. There's always a way to be different. Put your ego aside. Don't be afraid to copy and then improve what's been done. Find the gold. Gold is what's unexpected and important, and therefore is a superior value option. And give change a chance. Copy success and then build up. Don't quit too soon. And be purpose-driven. Help somebody else avoid experiences they don't want and then gain ones they do want. Remember, if Martin Luther King had said, "Have I got a strategic plan?" do you think you would have heard of him? What's the dream? What's the experience? What can they visualize? What can people be passionate about? So, real quick, share some examples just in my very early life that set the foundation of what I am. At age 10, right, I noticed riding my bike, there was this company that sold educational things to elementary schools for learning. Well, not knowing I couldn't do that, I pulled my bicycle in and said, "So I see you sell to teachers and stuff. And some of them sort of like games. Frankly, one of them, as an example, was Uno, going way back then. And another one was Othello, which you may have heard going back then. And they had them in their store. And they said, "No, we don't sell to anybody but teachers." I said, "Well, will you sell to me? I'm a 10-year-old kid." He said, "Sure." So I went to the equivalent of Odd Lots and bought 5 suitcases and trained my friends from October to December to knock on doors. And whether it's grandparents or parents, you could quickly see who was living there. And I said, and we'd say, "Hey, Christmas or Hanukkah is coming up. And are you frustrated by the fact that most of the stuff you buy is junk and has no educational value? Well, we have a suitcase full of educational toys that typically are only sold to schools." That was my first business. At age 12, tie-dye shirts became big, right? And the lesson I learned there is it's not about the details. It's about the best guess. What did I want? I'm a teenage boy. What do boys want? They want someone to make the shirts for them. What's unique? Well, I drew a template and the boys could put down where they wanted, what colors, whatever, and we make it. So what I did is girls loved making the shirts. Boys want someone to make it for them. I made it easy as a bridge in between. Here's a template. Boys, what do you want? Girls, you create it. And boy, that got me dates. Awesome at age 12. Nonetheless, I learned was age 16. Pain to solve their pain. So, what was that? Well, that same company I was doing the educational toys for, I noticed that Fridays were really rough for them because everyone wanted to get out of there, and therefore a lot of stuff didn't get shipped. And for school systems, especially in the spring and in the summer, teachers are waiting for it to set up or whatever. So I went to the owner and said, "Hey, I need a car. Tell you what, can I use a company van and pay you 18 cents a mile? In exchange, I'll do the shipping every Saturday to catch up with anything that didn't get done during the week. And B, every day after school, what didn't get done by 5, I'll make all the deliveries to the post office. Just have the packages ready. I'll bring all the packages." That's how I got a vehicle, because I didn't have the money and my parents didn't. Age 21. Value is often hidden versus obvious. So what was that business? Well, I realized people like art, but they were intimidated by art galleries. So I said, well, I'm going to go into just decorative, affordable art. So I watched people at like Macy's and Bloomingdale's every Saturday morning at the cosmetic section and watched for that stereotype woman who was awesome with customers, not make a lot of money, and say, "Hey, how much you make? $7 an hour. If I could give you an opportunity to make $50,000 a year, would you be interested?" "Absolutely. What do you want me to do?" "I want you to run an art gallery." "Well, I don't know anything about art galleries." "I can teach you the art. I need someone who can work with customers the way you do and help them feel comfortable." And we ended up with 32 art galleries in 3 years. Fear versus gain is a motivator. So some of you may remember in 1979, 1980, the price of gold and silver took off. And people were buying, selling their gold and silver. And I noticed a few things. People aren't bringing in a lot because they're afraid they're at hotels and stuff, they're going to get robbed in the parking lot. So I set up a business using my art gallery people who we were a summer business I used them in the winter business, taught them how to buy gold and silver, but we only paid by check. Now, at first, that may look stupid, but the police department, they're now recommending us. The clergy, they're now recommending us. People selling the gold and silver, bringing a lot more because they knew it was safe, avoiding risk. Next one's age 23. I noticed that in the second biggest city in New England, which was Worcester, and it had a metro including Leominster and Fitchburg, whatever, the owners wouldn't accept cigarette and liquor ads. So I said, okay, I'm going to set up a weekly newspaper. But what made it unique? Well, most weekly newspapers are female oriented. I set up a Dear Eli section, which was about sports and stuff. And I went to a couple of small chains of supermarkets. One of them, if you're a blues person, happened to know Tedeschi Trucks. It was Tedeschi's dad, who I used to sell to. I said, if you guarantee these advertising pages, I'll sell them to you really cheap. That covered my overhead. And I was profitable from day one. And because it was a male audience, I got the liquor and cigarette ads they weren't getting. And then do things differently versus typical. To get myself through grad school, I set up a company making needlecraft kits. But what was different? Everyone else is selling through needlecraft shops. I go, you know what? Let's make college seals and sell them through college bookstores. What's the point of all of these as examples? It's not about expertise. Swing the bat. It's not about the details. It's your best guess. It's not about my pain. It's about solving their pain. Value is often hidden. Just focus what's obvious. Fear is a great motivator. I'd rather take someone else's idea and improve it than make it totally my own. And do things differently versus what's typical. So you agreed at the beginning. This would be successful for you if you gain some confidence with some tools that make it easier to pursue your dreams. You gain some insight in the concepts that encourage effective innovation. You got some tools that enable you to unleash some of that creativity. So how'd we do? Was today successful for you? Awesome. You missed the Tedeschi truck. Oh, they are so awesome. And as you probably know, Derek Trucks, his uncle, was the drummer for the Allman Brothers. And then Derek himself played with them several times. It was awesome. Well, thank you. It looks like people are saying this was a good program for you. And I appreciate it. Please tell other people about other programs that SCORE does. There's lots of them. And I do several, and I hope you encourage other people to go. And Barry, I'm turning it back to you.
All right. Well, thank you, Dave. Thank you, everyone, for attending today. We will have the recording available up on our SCORE website, the midflorida.score.org website. It'll be up shortly. You will get an email asking for feedback. We appreciate if you take just a couple of minutes to give us that feedback. It helps us plan our future events. With that, thank you to everyone for attending. Thank you, Dave, for all sorts of valuable information. And we hope to see you all somewhere on another webinar soon. One more question about where do we find the video? If you go to the SCORE website, click that little plus sign that I mentioned earlier, score.org, click the plus sign, and put in a zip code for the Villages or for Ocala or somewhere that the Mid-Florida chapter is. So for example, 32162. Then click on the local workshops and you will find a link to our recorded webinars. And that's exactly where it'll be. It'll take me a few hours to get it up there. So thanks again, everyone. Thank you, Dave.
Barry, have a great day.
Bye for now, everyone.